Okay, for our next topic, we're going to look at linear equations. So, linear equations are basically just equations that have a single variable with no exponents on them, and we're able to solve for a constant. So, they're things like 2x plus 1 equals 5. Could be as simple as x equals 4. It doesn't have to be x, it could be any letter that we're looking at. One thing to keep in mind when we do solve, if the letter ends up disappearing, so we end up with something like 5 equals 5 or 0 equals 0, something like that, that actually means that any value would be true. So if x was the letter and for some reason it disappeared and you got something like that, then that means that x could be anything. And when they write it like that, x with the kind of curved e and then an r, the curved e means is an element of, and then the r with kind of a double line on the left hand side means the real numbers. Now, on the other hand, if you got something like 4 equals 0, where that doesn't make any sense, then basically there's no solutions, so therefore x doesn't have a value, so therefore no real solutions. Alright, so keeping that in mind, because that can come up occasionally, let's try to solve a couple of linear equations. So the first example, let's try 2x plus 19 equals negative 5. So we're going to treat this just like we were doing in the other topics with rearranging the subject. So we're trying to get x by itself and solve it. So the first thing we want to do is move anything that's not attached to the x, and that plus 19 is not, so I minus 19. So you'd end up with 2x equals, and if I minus 19 from 5, I'm at negative 24. And then the next step would be to divide by 2 to get x by itself, so x would equal negative 12. Let's try another one. This time we'll put x in more than one place. So maybe 4x plus 6 in brackets is equal to 17 plus 3x. So the first thing I want to do is multiply that 4 into that x plus 6, because I need to get the x's together so I can solve it, so I want to get rid of those brackets. So we get 4x plus 24 is equal to 17 plus 3x. And then I want to collect the x's together, so I'm going to minus 3x from both sides. So 4x minus 3x would just be 1x, plus the 24 is 17. And then I would minus 24 from both sides. So x would be equal to negative 7. For our next example, let's try one with a denominator, some fractional ones. So example 3, and maybe I'll try a different letter. So 3y minus 1 all divided by 5 is equal to 4 minus y over 3. So the first thing we want to do here is get rid of the fractions, get rid of these denominators. So I'm going to cross multiply. So the first side is going to get multiplied by 3. And then I'm going to move the 5 from the denominator of the first one and bring it to the other side. So it's going to multiply the 4 minus y by 5. Multiplying in, we get 9y minus 3 is equal to 20 minus 5y. So the next step would be to get the y's together. I'm going to add the 5y, bring it over to the other side. So I get 14y. And at the same time, I'm going to move that minus 3, so it'll become plus 3 is 23. And then for a final step, I will divide by 14. Y is equal to 23 over 14. Now I can't simplify that one any further, and if I was to write a decimal, it's not going to be nice. I'm going to have to round it, so I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction of 23 over 14 because that is more accurate that way. So this time let's have 6 over f is equal to 2 over f plus 1. So once again, we don't want to have fractions, we don't want these denominators, so I'm going to cross multiply. So the f plus 1 goes up to the left hand side, and then the f goes up to the right hand side. So I'll have 6 times f plus 1 is equal to 2 times f. Multiply the 6 in, so I get 6f plus 6 is equal to 2f. I'm going to subtract the 2f, so I get 4f plus 6 is equal to 0. The next step would be to minus 6, so I get the 4f equals negative 6, and then I would divide by 4. So f is equal to negative 6 over 4, and that's the same as negative 3 over 2, or negative 1.5. Let's do an example, like I said before at the beginning, where the letter disappears. So if I had something like 5 bracket x minus 3 is equal to 5x plus 1. So this time I multiply the 5 in, so I get 5x minus 15 is equal to 5x plus 1. Now I'm going to move the 5x from the right hand side over, but when I do that it'll be 5x minus 5x, which is 0. So I end up with negative 15 is equal to 1. And those two things are not equal to each other. So therefore there is no real solutions. And that was example 5. And for a last one, I could have 10x plus 20 is equal to 5 bracket 2x plus 4. And you'll notice that those look similar to each other. When I multiply the 5 in, they will be. So 10x plus 20 equals 10x plus 20. And if I minus the 10x, I end up with 20 equals 20. And this is the case where both sides are equal to each other, so that means anything's possible. So x is an element of the real numbers. So I'd like you to try the questions on page 37 and 38, and then come back to the next tutorial. We'll do a few more examples before you do pages